Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wa akibatun lil mustaqim wa la ruhwana ila ala dalimin. Wa Sayyidina Muhammadin Allahu ta'ala wa alayhi wa salam. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh. Lil ikwani fati fi din wa salamu ala mani tabahuda lil ikwani fati fi Afrika, Europa wa America, Caribbean wa kuli makan. And my dear brothers and sisters, this has been a short notice as usual. And I'm wanting to embark on a series talking about Egypt. And as you notice my marquee, I said Egypt is ours. And I mean what I say by that. I started weeks ago giving you DNA evidence. We have people who came on, one in particular disputed. He could not bring up, he just started throwing things out. He's looking up Google, and whatever racist historian put there, he put on the chat here, and Iranian. And all I ask, brothers and sisters, I don't suppress anyone, but you come here with intelligence and you back up your play. That's all we can ask for. We're all adults here. I don't care if you're African or Asian, makes no difference. Everyone is welcome here. The distractors, trolls, spies, haters of Africans, you're not invited. No one wants you here. But others, we are accepting. I'm a Muslim. I must be just. Let me see who's here. And we got people in the chat. We got our brother here, Marcus. Please subscribe to our brother's station here. And he's talking about his family. And this is what we should do, brothers and sisters. We should be networking, and we should always have reference for our people, because if no one likes the Africans. I don't care if you're in America, Europe. So we should love ourselves and love our brothers and sisters, because everyone else take care of their own. It seems like we're not the ones who want to take care of our own. And this is part of the problem why this is not off topic. Egypt is ours. Okay? Egypt is ours. It always has been and always will be. And this is why I'm talking about this. And I'll go into a series of things talking about why Egypt is ours. With all the distractors. And if you sit down for a minute and you actually examine the evidence and you look at the region in itself and you see Egypt, how is it that there's some kind of imaginary dividing line? Suddenly someone reaches to the north of that, the people become white. And then to the south and to the east and west, everybody is black, ranging from light brown complexion to jet black. You have to think about that. It doesn't make sense. And those people had to mix. And we know the genetics. If those lily white ancient Egyptians, as the Europeans say, we talking about the racist ones and the misinformed, if they were white all these centuries, how did they stay white mixing with all these black men? Impossible. Just impossible, brothers and sisters. As you heard me say here a couple of days ago. So we will look into this aspect, and I'm going to get into this slowly, because there's aspects. I'm not going to get into a lot because I'm a Muslim. I have to be very careful as well in what I cover, because I cannot glorify, I'll get in trouble with Subhanahu wa ta'ala, anything that deals with the Trinity, things that the Subhanahu wa ta'ala makes him angry, because he doesn't want us to worship many gods. This is an aberration, as you know. And so, there's periods of Egypt's history, we know this has happened, just like it's happened everywhere else. But we have to be very careful of this. And like our brother said, Egypt is ours. It is ours, brothers and sisters. It always have been. It's never been sitting in Europe or England or some country in between, and suddenly it just kind of fell out from Europe, went across the ocean, and then landed in North Africa. And then when it landed in North Africa, it brought the Europeans with them. Brothers and sisters, this type of nonsense, we should put this to rest. We should put this to rest and say, enough is enough. Egypt is ours. Okay, and we know it as Kempt. We know it in the Arabic language as Besser, and we have other names also that's given to this region. We know that in various languages. So let's look at this. I'm going to talk about some premises, brothers and sisters, here. Who are the Egyptians? Where did they originate? Boy, it's funny how this computer changes words around. War? Oh man, this is funny. Were the, okay, oh no, that's so bad. How did it change like this? I had corrected this, but anyway, who are the Hebrews and Jews? Who are the West Africans? Where did they come from? The ancient Egyptians, linguistic proofs. Brothers and sisters, if you talk about ancient Egypt, you got to talk about West Africa. You got to talk about the Hebrews and Jews because it's intertwined. And I pose this question to those who will show up here in the future, inshallah. Who are the West Africans and where did they come from? Because it's related to the ancient Egyptian Kempt saga, and as well as the Jews and Hebrews. See, and what is the King's List? This is important, brothers and sisters. I'll cover this. This is very important because the King's List will give you a good idea how the names of the kings were changed to fit a European perspective. Some of it was knowingly and others was not. I give example, you heard me talk about this before. Those who do not speak and understand Japanese language. You go to Japan and you hear them speaking Japanese, so you ask the gentleman, Maswaska, in Japanese, what is your name? Okay, and the person gives you the name, but you're not familiar with Japanese, so you have an English background, so you begin to write his name according to what is easy for you. This is what they did to our ancestors in Kempt. They did the same thing to Greeks because it's not, a lot of them didn't know what they didn't do it knowingly, but just that they had to write the names down. But this King's List is important, brothers and sisters. I give you what I'm talking about. Tutankhamun. Everybody knows him, the man, the boy child who became the pharaoh and so forth and so on. Now, if you look at the linguistics of this name, all right, I'm going to tell you right now, I'll give you one part of that. We know him to be, because he is African, we know this, Tutu and Koma. Okay, this is what we know him as. And we know him as this because we know there's a variety of language that was spoken in Egypt, in Kempt, in ancient Egypt. There was other languages spoken as well. No different than like in America, for instance. You have immigrants come in. There's a national language. Okay, we know there's a national Egyptian language, so to speak, but we have other black folk that come in. They learn the national language, but they still keep their language, Ga, or Akan, or Ewe. See, all these languages have been tied in to ancient Egypt. I'll get into more of this because the linguistics part of this is important. And you remember I covered about Kempt, how all the proof. We have the Mellon test proving that the people were black. We have eyewitness accounts. We have many European historians wrote about ancient Egypt, especially Herodotus. Herodias wrote in left about the people in Kempt. He described them as black with, with pronounced noses and thick lips and kinky hair. I talk about the proof that the development of scientists, they developed they looked at the ancient mummies. Now, again, our racist historians and even racist Egyptians, they took the mummies of the conquerors and the colonizers, the Europeans, and said these are the ancient Egyptians, when in fact it's not. Because when these tests began to develop, Sheikh Dab had the Milne test. He went and tested these people, and he found them to be European. The royal mummies and the population of Kempt were black because of the Milne test. All right, Milne test meaning about when you go to darker climates, the people have more melanin than the skin. Than when you moved into European confines, then the melanin they have it, but it's less. They developed the other test. The other test on hair. They took hair fragment and they gave numbers. The Europeans have a very high number because the hair was straight, going between 8 to 80 to 100 was the test. If your hair is kinky or so, it's 50 and under. The ancient Egyptians who were tested by hair were ranging from, some had very kinky, 25, 30. Okay, this is the numbers that were given. That means their hair was, very, very, very kinky. Okay, so when Herodias went to the north, he found black people, as you heard me talk about, who were black, but their hair strains were between now 50 and up because now they were away from Africa. All of this evidence has been ignored. And I gave it to you. And again, we had a person come in, some of the people. I prefer, if we can, brothers and sisters, please review my tapes. Then go from there, do your research. Don't come in and try a case because you're trying to be a troll in here when we have brothers. You're disrespecting your brothers when you come in on this site and you start coming up with nonsense. Do that somewhere else. Okay, please. We have a lot of sites where you can do that. Here, our brothers and sisters, we mean business because we're here trying to protect our own. And we ain't here to have any traitors. I don't care if they're white or black. They're black too, Bob. We hold you responsible as well. Here we try to protect our own. Here we try to protect our continent. So we don't have time for the traitors. I'm going to tell you, I can speak freely. And we mean business because this is our continent. This is our people. This is our ancestors. So we are going to protect it. We're obligated to protect our ancestors because they're ours. And the land, this is our land. It's not theirs. I don't care if they colonized it and how many people they took out and what they have done. This is our land. This is our continent. Egypt belongs to us. Okay? Bottom line. And even we are supported by even the hieroglyphics. That's the thing. We're supported. Our brothers too were nationalistic. They described themselves as being black. They even named their land the Black Lands. That's what this Kempt actually means. The Europeans switched it around by trying to say they're talking about black soil. BS. See, we know that. We know this case. Let's look here at some of our brothers and sisters who we have here. King's List was an account. Yes, the kings recognized as legitimate rulers of Egypt. The Europeans tried to mess with this list. This is why this is important and why the linguistics of this is important, brothers and sisters, because the African dialects, okay, is what we should master and understand about Kempt. The languages, Tutu and Kuma. This is King Tut, okay, and they changed these names, but the African names, these lists were, and what happened? The Europeans changed these lists around. Very, very interesting, and this is how they end up claiming Egypt to be white, and white for thousands of years. And brothers and sisters, we know logistics. We know genetics. The black man has dominant genes. Whatever he touches, he changes it. Yes, the white does to a degree too, but he cannot breed anybody out. We can. They cannot produce black kids. They can't go places and produce other than what they are. We can. We've proven that by genetics. When we left Africa, okay, we were black. We begin to have babies in the northern tier who begin lighter. The Europeans can't do this. See, this is what we're talking about here. Yes, the royal mummies, and it's funny how this is why when you study about Egypt, ancient Egypt, Kim, you watch how they talk about this. You see them with the graphics of white folk and everything. Even the hairdress and the colors don't fit the tubab. Okay, we know this. And that's why you have to be critical when you see these types of reporting. And you have to ask questions. And a simple one is you have a dividing line. You have Lower Egypt. Lower Egypt means what? It means northern Egypt. Then you have Upper Egypt, which means what? Southern Egypt, right? How can all this area be black? You have Nubia, Kush, all right, all this. And the people are black. And Herodotus described them as jet black in color. And here, Herodotus, who's European himself, said that the people of Kemp was black, but the modern historians said they were white. And again, I ask you a question. How did these white women mate with all of these blacks for thousands of years and they still maintain the genetics of white skin and blonde hair and blue eyes? Impossible. 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 These are some things I was talking about that you should examine this issue. Common sense, brother, sister, you should use. You got a white woman and a black man. Okay, you look at this. Now, you start mixing this for thousands of years. How many of them are going to come back, say, after 1,000 years, and they're going to be blind and blue-eyed? Impossible, brothers and sisters. It's impossible. Yes, the Romans came from the south. Yes, this has been proven. Because the test, when we begin to open up these sites and we start to examine their hair, we did the Mellon test and we took DNA. And remember, we went round and around about the DNA. Remember this E1B, and there's a series of E series and the L series and so forth and so on, right? All of this ties us into making Egypt ours. Okay, making Egypt ours. And why is important, brothers and sisters? You see when I ask the question, how about the West Africans? Who are the West Africans? Think about this. Who are the West Africans and where did they come from? You, my black brother, who's sitting in America, that should affect you as well, because your descendants are from West Africa. So who are you? And where did your descendants come from? Because according to the Europeans, they have pushed us aside as though we came out like we're lizards and toad frogs and turtles and monkeys, as though suddenly we came out from something and we became human beings out of nowhere. But we know this is not the case. How you doing, my dear brother? Thank you for showing up today. I really appreciate this. And so we look at this, brothers and sisters, and and I'm going to get deeper into this. But I want to read some things to you, and I'm going to give you also guides that you can use to help for you to discern, because there's important aspects of this. One is the black folk that was in ancient Egypt. Okay, that's important. The second part is, how about the Jews and Hebrews? What was their avenue in this? Because they're part of this. And then the West Africans. The West Africans, yes. What role did they play? You got to ask that question. And this is what we're talking about. And again, we talked about the originality. Where did they originate from? Black people had to come from somewhere. If we know, scientists have told us that the first human beings were from East Africa, okay, and we know them to be black. Now, again, brothers and sisters, we use common sense. If we know the first human beings were black, how did all of a sudden, there was no such thing as white people at this time, how they left the cradle, which as we know is the Kenya region today. They went a couple of thousand miles and suddenly they became white. in one area, and then the rest of the area stayed black, when the Europeans were not even created yet. The Europeans, we are the Europeans as well, because when we came across, Subhanahu wa ta'ala began to open up the land, and we begin to cross over into what we know Jazira Arab today. We start to go north. And as you heard me say, even Herodias talked about this issue. When we begin to leave Africa, we begin to change. This genetic drift and natural selection begin to happen. Herodias found black folk in present-day Iran. You're talking about 440 years before Jesus was born. Herodias was there. He talked about the people he found in Iran. He said they were black-skinned, but they were not as black. And he said their pronounced features that he saw in Egypt were less. Their lips were thinner, their nose was thinner. The genetic drift. He said their hair was curlier, not kinky, but curly now. See, so we start to have this drift, and they begin to go across into what we know India. They have always been there. We have still African populations in the Andaman Islands. This is what is fascinating too. Look at them. They're Africans. You have Sentinel Island is one of them. I saw from Sentinel Island. I think I saw them, and I forgot when I was in Thailand way back in 1997. I went down south. I went to Marketplace. I saw them. I saw these brothers that came from the Andaman Islands. They were black. Okay, I saw them. And when they saw me, they started to put their hand up like, black power. They recognized, because they wouldn't have to be black folk like us, with African features. They were sitting down there at that time down in the south. I went there on vacation and whatnot, like this, doing other things. I was there for approximately 3 weeks. I went down to the south and I saw these black folk. I saw them and they saw me and they began to do this to me, like shaking their hand. And I found out from my guide, he said, oh yeah, these guys come from the Andaman Islands. So even we had brotherhood even then. I mean, because the brothers saw me from the Andaman Islands, they were black. They saw me and they began to shake their hands like this to me. See, so we have black folk everywhere. And we know this to be the case. Ancient Egypt is funny. We go past Egypt, we go all over the place. Yes, sister. Oh yeah, we know black people went there. But why? But Egypt, they keep white. Brothers and sisters, we're going to clear this up again. We're going to look at the logistics to this and look at the language and see to this. I've already given you one. King Tut, the name, okay? His name is Tutu and Kuba. That's the name. This is the African name. And again, the language, we have something, they were saying that this name comes from the Akan people. Again, West Africans. We have West African traditions that the Jews still use today. And many of our traditions we took from Egypt. We also proven, brothers and sisters, is what? By writing systems. Don't let anybody fool you and tell you black folk were only in trees eating banana. And only when the Tubab came is when we learned how to write. We had writing systems. I showed you that too. That was germane to where? Kempt. So that's another thing. How did we get that? The Europeans did not travel into this region. They did not. It just didn't. The black people began to record the white folk around the 1300s when they began to define them. And we started to develop names like what? Bakra. Bakra means white man. It means actually is more derogatory. It means white man who smells like chicken. Because in West Africa, when they start to encounter the white man in the forest, they begin to smell. And you know how you go in areas, the brothers, because of the food and everything, this is natural. The food and everything, and the white man will come through the jungle. They know by the smell. They say, hey, we have bakra. That means white man who smells like chicken, because this is the way it was. I got that from my grandmother on my dad's side. We know them to be Tubab. That's the other name we call Europeans. It's much more into the language of who they are, being white. Okay, so we have that. All of these terms like this begin to talk about the Europeans. They begin to see them in the 13 or 1400s. They did not come there in 300 BC or anything. They did not make it there yet. These are other proofs to show that Egypt is ours and we left it. The West Africans and the Jews are related. Brothers and sisters, I'm going to show you this. And even Marcus, who does a lot of research on this, brother's still here now, he'll tell you. The Jews, the original Jews, were not Tubab, as you see today, who are fighting our brothers in Gaza. Even the books, we have Jewish scientists prove that the real Jews came from Africa, because again, the genetics and the DNA evidence shows that they came from South Central Africa, because they moved out from there. When the scientists were led to believe that they were white, they went to Europe and tested Europeans all over, could not find this gene that was prevalent among Jews, until one Jewish historian scientist said, hey, no, we have to go to Africa. They begin to go to Africa. They begin to find this gene. So the Jews, and as we understand, the Hebrews are related to us because we have a high level of Jewish and Hebrews in West Africa. We know that. So when you listen to our brothers who are Hebrew and Jews, don't laugh at them, because they probably are the ones who are descendants, because we have a sizable Hebrew population. They left along with the rest of the Fulani, the Amazigh, the Akan, all of us left out from Messer. We had Jews, we had Hebrews among us. That's right. See, so we look at that, brothers and sisters, and make sure we don't forget that fact. Okay, we have, yes, here. Animate, yes, yes. Animate, this is fascinating. Brothers and sisters, if you want to see, you try to figure this out. You look at the Animate Islanders, they're black folk. Okay, many of them look like people from the Croatian speakers from the South. Many of them look like they're shorter stature black folk, black, really black. Okay, how do they maintain that? Where did they come from? You see, and I saw them when I was in southern part. I was in the southern part of Thailand. I saw them, I heard. I was in a marketplace. And when they saw me, I saw them. They began to do like black power to me and waving, to me and everything like this. See, so I saw that. Okay, where we got here? Yeah, how you doing, my dear brother? Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Thank you for showing up, my dear brother. And let me see here. We got our brother here is also depicted is black, and the hunting habits of this is seen as the origins of writing of yes. Now our brother Marcus, he just concluded on a period talking about Egypt. We were talking about the writing systems. This is a big thing, because it proves something about the writing systems, and we took that from that area. And if you saw my class 2 or 3 weeks ago, I did this talk about this. We developed the same writing systems. Of course, there's variances. The Fulani, the Hausa, there's the Mende script, there's the Bambar script. There's a whole list of these scripts that we took from Egypt. Egypt is ours. Egypt is ours, brothers and sisters. And the West Africans are the ancient Egyptians, because we still have the customs that we still practice today, and we still have the writing systems and the names. That's right, brothers and sisters. Egypt is ours. Bottom line. And I've given the proof now. And the writing systems is beautiful. But I want to read something to you. I'm gonna get to some of this, and I'm gonna start to get shame we lost so many beautiful words that yes, these languages and stuff like that, brothers and sisters. I'm an old man now. I'm 70 years old now. I wish somehow or another I had the knowledge I have now, and I'm 20 years old, say, for instance. I'll be pushing in the United States in particular to tell our children, your future children, begin to name your children after all of these black heroes and black folk, and use our languages to name our children, and stop using the names of the Russians and the Europeans, we have problems, brothers and sisters. Boy, excuse me for a minute. I see we have some problems here. Let me see. You can imagine my enemies, don't like this type of talk, because our enemies are here in Africa to promote their ancestry and for us to worship them. They do not want to see this type of thing like this. And we got to here, and then, how you doing, my dear brother? Greetings to you too, salam. And here we got a brother here, Anjarama, my dear brother. Thank you for showing up. I really appreciate this. And we have our brother here. The original Hebrews were black. They were mistook Moses as being Egyptian when he was Hebrew. Look up the book of Exodus. Yes, Jesus was also his heritage was also denied. And it was switched over. And the Bible, this is a touchy issue, because we have a majority of African Americans inside the United States believe in Eurocentric Christianity. We know this. We still have too many black folk in the United States and even Africa that still have the white picture of Jesus, alayhi salatu wasalam, and you can't get them past that. Okay, you just cannot. Even if you give them evidence, they cannot look past that. And I had these arguments with many of our brothers and sisters for many decades, and you just can't get them to change. And you try to explain to them that Jesus was black, they'll sit and smile, but then you go to their house, they refuse to take the picture down. They still want to believe it's the slave mentality. They did a number on us, and they made people to believe that the ancient Egyptians and Jews and everything else were white. And we will cover this in a couple of weeks here. I'm going to a series talking about this and about the Jews and Hebrews and the West Africans, because the Jews and Hebrews and West Africans, we are related, brothers and sisters. Yes, we are. I'll get into that. We are related. We are related. But I want to cover something to you with you guys real fast. We got here, and then I'll go. The real Jews are found in Ethiopia, Niger, yes, even Southern Africa, yes. Now, precursor. The Jewish scientists, along with some other black African scientists, looking for what they call the priestly gene, which is germane to the Jews they found in DNA. They couldn't find this priestly gene in Europe. They went to the Middle East. They couldn't find it. Even though people died there, yes, they found that remnants, but they found this gene in Egypt, in Kemet. They went to Asia. They couldn't find it, until another Jewish scientist and his African colleague told him, you got to come here to Africa to find this gene. They went to South Central Africa and found a people, which I will cover, who are the original Jews. They have the priestly gene. The ones that you see today floating around, they admit only between 3 to 5% carry priestly gene. The rest of them are Europeans. They're converts to Islam. They're converts to Judaism. See, so that should be understood. The originals had Nubian types, yes, bulk, yes, or West Africa, yes. We know they traveled in its regions. Here we're trying to concentrate on Egypt. Why? Because when we start to go away from Egypt, this is why I'm saying Egypt is ours. Because when we start to go away from Africa, we start going to Asia. This is where the Europeans have their day. And racism among the historians, by saying, you know what, yeah, look at the people over here. They're not black like the Ghanaians. They're not black like the Nubians. They're not really black like the Senegalese. See, so I'm concentrating on the Genesis, which is Egypt and in Africa. This is what I'm talking about. And I'm giving just the basic elementaries, so that way we'll keep it there in Africa. Then we branch, because we know the black people went everywhere. We know this. We know they went everywhere. But I want to keep us in Egypt and just talking about the original. Who were these people? Who were the ancient Egyptians? How did they get to Egypt? And when they left, where did they go? This is what is important. The trek to go into Jazira Arab, into Asia, into Europe was a later period. See, African world. Thank you, my dear brother. Thank you for showing up. I really appreciate that. And our brother here, Marcus, Jesus was able to hide. Yes, yes, he hid. And you got to remember something. There's a passage that always intrigued me in the New Testament. This shows something. Again, we have discrepancies in the Bible. You know, it's 140 versions of it. We talked about this. We talked about Jesus, alayhi salatu salam. I know, I had a question asked me, and this is not a topic real quick. I had a brother ask me, hey man, every time I hear you talk about the prophets, you always add to it because we're Muslims. We're taught that we venerate all the prophets and we give them our peace and there's Arabic words that we use that Subhanahu wa ta'ala has taught us. Okay, so when we venerate the prophets, we just don't give them their name because they're better than you and me. We just don't say Yahya. Yahya actually is John, John the Baptist. Yahya, alayhi salam. See, peace and blessings be on him, because every time we mention their names, we love them, we revere them. So we talk about the prophet. This is African customs. We venerate our best, and the prophets are the best of us. So we venerate them. We don't treat them as normal Muhammad, Yahya, or Ahmed, and we don't say anything else. So when you hear me talking about Suleiman or Solomon, alayhi salatu salam, Dawood, David, alayhi salatu salam, you hear me talk in the other language, in Arabic, talking about giving props to those messengers. I just wanted to get that to you so you can understand why I talk like this. When I mention the name of the prophets, I always venerate them with other verbiage. In other words, like Baba, okay? In some words, like Baba. But even that, we even greater that by giving them peace and blessings and so forth and so on. And this is what we should do. Fact, yes, my dear brother. And indeed, yes. And our brother said, I can hear you. Thank you, my dear brother, because I had some problems there. I appreciate that. And peace. Yes, thank you, my dear brother. Yes, when each one of us is African customs, we should be greeting everybody. All the brothers come here. We should all greet, have this reference for us. We should say salam. Jesus, alayhi salatu salam, when he talked to the people, what did he do? He said shalom, shalom alaikum, right? This is in Hebrew language, right? That's how if you're a Christian, you should do this. Again, because we were taken away from the customs. Jesus, sunnah, alayhi salatu salam, what did he do when he talked? When he spoke, shalom. In classical Arabic, salam, salam alaikum, right? Shalom alaikum in Hebrew. That's right. See, so when we dress, we should be addressing one another and dress one another in its proper context. Yes, I know I'm from a hood in Compton. We have ways we talk, but now we're talking about, we're venerating our best and our ancestors. We have to give them their props. See, so when you see me, I give salam. I say salam to everybody because this is the way we were taught, and this is African customs, brothers and sisters. Okay, and don't make no mistake about this. We greet one another with respect because this is what our ancestors did. If you're a Christian, you follow Jesus. You say, I'm Christian. You follow what Jesus did. Jesus said what? He said, what? Shalom, shalom, shalom alaikum. And you guys can do research on that. This is where we're supposed to do this. We're supposed to be respectful. Phobia among the ancient Egyptian rulers, many relate to phobia. Yeah, yes, we had the linguistics. We had Akan. We had Ga. We had Hausa as well. We had many languages that we had account for there. But there was a prima facie language that was used in Egypt. We know this. And then others developed from that. And you have to ask the questions, brothers and sisters, who are the West Africans? Who are the West Africans? Think about that. Who are the West Africans? And why do they speak Ga? Why do they speak Akan? Why do they speak Mende? Why do they speak Mendinka? Why do they speak Fulde? Think about this. Why do they speak Tiv and Igbo? All these languages. Where did he come from? Where did he come from? I'm posing that to everybody here. You think about that. Where, brothers and sisters? I'll take a couple more of these and I'll get back to my thing here. Hello, my brother. Your brother. Okay. Yes. Thank you very much. And please, when we have brothers who's got their stations like we do here, support your brothers. Support your brothers because each one of us have something we offer. You get a well-rounded education. That is African custom as well. Get well-rounded education. Don't be confined to only me or to Marcus, but you get good, well-rounded education, but the right education. And here, so-called, I don't understand. Kohen, Kohen is, I know the name Kohen. Kohen, we know is in Hebrew because we have a lot of Kohen people with this last name, but I don't know if our brother here is talking about that or not. The Lion of Judah was Ethiopian. Yes, we know. We know this, and I did something on this about 2 years ago. We know about this situation, and you heard me last week. I think I talked about my son, my next oldest son. I gave him the name Menelik, out of love and respect for Suleiman alayhi salam and for Sheba. Sheba, we know her as Makeda. You do your research. I asked somebody who's talked about this to do research on this because her name was Makeda. Everybody says, no, we have other names for her. But I know the name, the Gi's name, we understand that name to be Makeda. Remember we talking about that. So the child of these two was Menelik. I named one of my sons after this name. That's right, Menelik. I named him that. Okay, brother, if we're throwing, every African would rally around him. Yes, it's going to come. We will be free and we will rule again. But we're not going to rule the way people think it's going to rule. You think that it's going to be a European type situation where we have European ideals. That's going to be thrown out. We're starting to throw this out slowly as it is now. The guides of the American and the Europeans, we know them as to be Tuba. My grandmother, I had my grandma on my mom and them side, the term was Tuba. On my father's side, the term was used Bakra. My grandmother called the white folk Bakra. So we have these variances and so forth like this in names and how we describe people. But again, brothers and sisters, I'm just talking about issues here, languages and people. And yes, sir, this is the way it is. And one more here, and I'll get this. Yes, Egyptian shalom. Yes, again, shalom. You have the sister languages of the Aramaic, Hebrew, Ge'ez, and Arabic. Okay, we understand today, and all this is related in this African. Make no mistake about it, brothers and sisters. And I disagree with anybody who say, no, don't learn Arabic, don't learn Hebrew. That's not true. The black folk originate this language. It's ours as well, brothers and sisters. We were speaking it even in Messer, okay, in Kempt. We were speaking this. It is ours as well. These languages, Hebrew, all of that. We got away from that. We don't even give our children these names anymore. We give our children English, Irish, Welsh names, French names, Russian names, Belarusian names, right? We name our children like this. We don't name our children Solomon anymore. No, David, we stopped that. John, okay? But these are English variations of Yahya, Suleiman, Dawood. These are names that's germane to our languages that we spoke in ancient times. That's right, brothers and sisters. In ancient times, we spoke this language. We called David Dawood, okay, under the Hebrew and under Arabic, Dawood, Suleiman, Solomon. See, so you name your child Suleiman. This is the correct name and language that you use. And we have other names, Deborah, okay? Remember, we used to use this term, and we have many black kids, our daughters named Deborah in my time, in my generation. Remember Sheila? It's Shayla. Remember this name? This is Hebrew also, and also ancient Arabic as well. They had this name, Shayla, okay? We call Sheila in English. All of these beautiful names, we stopped, didn't we? We stopped naming our children these beautiful names, didn't we? Think about that. We stopped that. See, now we got brothers in the hood picking names like Pookie and some other crazy hut rat and all kind of other names, and naming their children after animals and naming off of some gun and all that. This is because of misguidance. And it's a lot due to us in my generation who are misguided. And we misguided our children and now look, we got a boy to run to me, and he's supposed to be my grandson. He tell me his name is Pookie. And I asked him, I said, what the hell is that? Oh, this is that's what daddy named me. See, I can't get on the child. It's not his fault. But my son, who named him that, I have to jump in for and say, well, son, where'd you get that from? You didn't get that from me. See, I'm just getting deep down into this. I'm talking straight out, okay? Straight out and honest. Okay, brother, sister, I'm going to go back to this. Arabic's closer en route to, Asia. Yes, it is an Asiatic language. You know this. The Hebrew, Aramaic, Ge'ez, Amharic, all of this, and whatnot. All of it is related. And Sheikh Job, it proved that as well. These are related languages. How you doing, my dear brother? Yes, the Tubab was, yes, Tubab referred to. Okay, now, yes. And also remember, those were protectors of the Pharaoh. Yes, greatest warriors in history. Yes, this is a history, again, that's very, very deep. One more, and I will go into it. Kohan is name used. Yes, we have people in Morocco with the name Kohan. And do you know we have black people here in Morocco with this name? We know these names to be Hebrew. We know this. We understand this. And we have black people here with this name, and we have all kind of other Moroccans have this name as well. So let me start back on to here. The ancient Egyptians located in Egypt, populated as the Europe now. Okay, this again, ancient Egypt, according to many of our distractors, is a European state. She was in North Africa from the beginning, but yet they said it was their state. The people who originated, populated, were in Africa. They were from Africa. They weren't from Europe. Again, brothers and sisters, when we look at the Book of the Dead and we look at the hieroglyphics and we read it, it tells you that they come from the mouth. They took the river, okay, from the mouth of the Nile. Remember, I gave you evidence, prima facie evidence to show to fight the Tubab, the racist Tubab. You have fresh water, okay, of the Nile, which flows into the Mediterranean as we know it today. It flows there. We know this, right? Now, we know fresh water and salt water don't mix. So the Nile could not originate from Sweden or England, and suddenly you go on a river from England and flow across the ocean and then follow this river into North Africa. Impossible. That's not the case, because fresh water and salt water don't mix. That's a key. Okay, that is a key. And then languages that was going also with that, but Herodias talked good because he gave an eyewitness account of what he saw. And he wasn't racist. He said the people were black, and he began to describe things about them. And I'll get into that in another time. But I want to give you something to show you the in-depth nature, to show up something about art, history, and everything. And I have to be very careful on the part, because here we talk about the belief system of our ancient Egyptians. You'll hear this. This sounds very familiar. And this here was written by Wallace Budge, who wrote a book talking about the Book of the Dead. He has a lot of interpretations that was wrong, but we understand his work is better than nothing. But he had a lot of interpretations of the hieroglyphic is wrong. We know that. He says here, he talks about translation of the glyphics, talking about the structure of what they believe. God is the one, and one who has made all things. This is Tawheed. God is a spirit, a hidden spirit, a spirit of spirits, and great spirit of the Egyptians, the divine spirit, meaning he's supreme. This came from the hieroglyphics that was translated. So when we had the variations and the deviances of some of the pharaohs who began to worship thousands of gods, but the prima facie evidence of our worship was Tawheed, oneness of God. God is from the beginning, and he's been from the beginning. He existed from or old and was nothing else had being. He existed when nothing else existed. This is our brothers talking about Subhanahu wa ta'ala. He existed when nothing else existed. And he existed, he created after he had come into being. He is the father of beings, meaning, again, this is even the contention that our Muslim scholars talk about the issue of Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hands, feet, eyes? Does he sleep? All these issues. For me, it's almost immaterial. You know what I mean? As far as I'm concerned, we know Subhanahu wa Taala. I try not. I go by with my teacher. My teacher said the things of known and things we cannot decipher, you leave it alone. Remember what I said the other? That's what he always told me many times. We get into subjects like this. He said, Shabaka, leave it alone, because you can't explain it, because you have no knowledge to explain. So then he says, and I'll stop at this, because there's many of these epitaphs that are written talking about what the ancient Egyptians, our ancestors, our people wrote about. He says here, God is external one. He is external and infinite, and endureth forever and ye. He hath endured for countless ages. He shall endure to all eternity. Meaning he's not being born. He's not dying. This is what our ancient brothers said about Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And even the word Yahweh that we use in Hebrew, that is used, it's been corrupted. Even that, our African brothers didn't use this term. Our ancient Black Hebrew brothers did not use this term. But I'll get into that at another time. So I wanted to give you that part of it. And I'm gonna give you some other things too about this. And I'm gonna give you also the evidence, and I'll give you things that you can look up, so that way you can get your education and get these books and read. Those who are very interested in learning the African history, especially about it's touted as the world's greatest civilization. You can understand why the Europeans, the Tubab, want to keep Egypt as being theirs when Egypt is ours, because it was what is the greatest, we know, civilizations on this earth. We know this. This is why the Europeans have fought hard. They've killed to maintain this title and said that it's theirs, when in fact it is not theirs. I'm going to give you something, brothers and sisters, to give you some things here. I'm going to read a little bit to you from this book. I talked about this book, the Africans wrote the Bible, because this is important, because our brother is an African scientist. He's not a Tubab or Bukra. He's not that. He's an African, okay? And he's a Khan, and he's from Ghana, and he's a historian and so forth. And he was also a geneticist, and he talks about ancient Egypt. That's why I keep saying ancient Egypt is ours. And he talks about ancient Egypt being ours. Here, he was talking about, and I'm going to give you some proofs about this. He says here, the story of ancient Egypt, Akan, Afrim. Afrim is the term that we call Africa, but it was originally called Afrim. Okay, I will spell this out to you here so you can see this, and I'll get to the comments in a minute. Afrim, this is the name that was used, okay, that became Africa, because the Europeans took and began to change it. But we knew the Ephraim meaning the people on the continent. This is the same way we use the word Sudan, right? Sudan meaning black folk. Okay, remember Soda. So in Arabic, we use the word Sudan, meaning black people. The Ephraim is the name that we knew the African tribes and African people. All of us, we call them Ephraim. He's talking about this here. He says, the book is about the ancient Egyptians, the Africans, the Jewish people, and the Bible, because the Bible was took off our ancestors. That's right, brothers and sisters, because we have similar stories that were written 2,000 years before the Bible was compiled, and we have similar stories. And he says the Bible, the European Christianity, it is related history of all things that have been trying to present throughout the book. And now that I am about to reveal the indigenous African tribes, names of authors of the Bible, I feel it is important to go over a summary of this story to freshen the foundation for the coming revelations. It is very serious theological problem to find out the Christian God Yahweh. Listen to me, brothers and sisters. Yahweh was an ancient Akan god of Thursday. Now, the Akan people were in Egypt. The God people were in Egypt. The Hausa people were in Egypt. The Igbo people we know were in Egypt as well. We have many who were in Egypt. And they took the word Yahweh, which they have many versions of this, how it's pronounced and how it's written. It was taken from the ancient Akan, god of Thursday. It is even worse to find out that Moses did not write the 5 books of Moses, and that Isaiah also did not write the biblical book attributed to him either. This is contended by Jewish scientists who said that Moses, salam, we know him as Musa, didn't write the books. And when you think about this, we know he got his revelation from Subhanahu wa ta'ala. We know this. We know he got the revelation, and he was given a guide and to lead the people, okay, the Hebrews out. We know this, right? But the books that supposed to be attributed to him, he did not write these. This is what now we're starting to find this out, because we find out that when he was in the mystery school systems, that all this training and stuff, it was there. And that all that training found its way somehow or another in the Old and the New Testaments. Because now when the Book of the Dead was uncovered, we start to find stories that were written 2,500 years before the Bible was compiled. So how, we got some discrepancy here, and our brother's talking about that. He says, even worse, to find out that Moses did not write the 5 biblical books of Moses, and that Isaiah also did not write the biblical book attributed to him. The revelation that Genesis Chronicle was based upon the ancient Egyptian kings. Remember, we talked about the kings list. I'll get into that. The list does not help matters. Further revelation that the story of Esau, Jacob, was adapted from the ancient Egyptian story of Horus and Set, which I'll give you the names of what these names mean. Effectively erodes the foundation beliefs that we had about biblical documents since childhood, because the Europeans took documents from the Africans, and they began to translate these documents that came from the Book of the Dead. And it was the book by Fourth Day and Night, I believe it's what Marcus told us last. I always have a hard time remembering the name of that. But we know that those books, we have many of the stories that we found in the Old and New Testament. Those things were written down 2,500 years before. So we have a problem here, brothers and sisters. We got a serious problem. Now, let's look at Joseph. You know him, prophet. Yusuf in Arabic language, alayhi salam. But we know the name, the African name that he had that was transformed by the Greeks was Osafo. Osafo. That's in Akan. That's also, I think, in Igbo, and also in Hausa. Also, these when they changed the names, because again, the Europeans couldn't pronounce these names. So they want to take the African from it by changing the names of many of the prophets. That's right. See, so that's just some of, brothers and sisters, that's just some of what we had and whatnot. And I'll give you one book. I want you guys, please, to get this book. It's called The African Origin of the Jewish People. And you got to, and it's by a Jewish scientist by the name of Gary Greenberg. Okay, again, The African Origin of the Jewish People. This brother destroyed, and they threatened to kill him. I don't know if you know about his story. When he brought this book out, he destroyed all the racist Jews as we know today as white. He's shown that they were not the real Hebrews and Jews. He wrote a book to prove that. It was him as one of the other founders of the real Jews in Africa. And he wrote a book, and he denounced their findings because they could not attribute names like Netanyahu. Netanyahu is actually an African name. And we have people with this name today, but we have little variations of that. We have many names of many of the Hebrews that we know today. These names are African. So how can a brother from Ghana or from modern day Togo or from southern Nigeria, and he's Igbo, have a name similar to that of Netanyahu? Think about this, brothers and sisters. How? But we have that. And so again, get this book. This is one of the books that I'll give you. It'll help you to be a precursor to this. Now, I'll read this part and I'll start getting, and I'll answer some of our questions of our brothers here. in his book, Mr. Greenberg talked about the writings of Herodias. Remember, Herodias is one who came into Egypt, and he was tasked to understand Egypt before the invasion. He saw black people. He didn't know what to call us. He didn't. So he used the Greek term Ethiop, meaning burnt by the sun, because they didn't have Niger and Negro and Moor and Moro. They didn't have those names. They called us Ethiop. That's where the word Ethiopian came from, right? Okay, see? And so he talked about that, and he said, Herodias said the ancient Egyptians had a strong tradition of writing, because that's why the Romans came in 300 AD to kill all scribes and scholars, to make sure and kill and to wipe out and burn the suppositories, which they did. And they took thousands of documents to destroy it, because the Roman Church, the Catholic Church, was in the business of suppressing black achievement, and they wanted to make it their own to be white. 440 years before Jesus was born, Herodotus wrote something. He said the Egyptians had a strong tradition of writing, record keeping, and history. The Egyptians who lived in the cultivated part of the country, by their practice, kept records of the past, hieroglyphics, have made themselves much best historians of any nation which I've had experience. In the very earliest times of united Egypt, even just before 32 BC, that's a long time before Christ, the deeds of the king's list, were always sculptured upon reliefs. Khufu, that he's writing the names that he heard and he knew of the ancient Egyptians. Khufu, he says. Khufu is one of the names. Khafre, okay? These come from Akan. These come also from Hausa. It comes from Igbo, and it comes from Mende. Okay, these are languages that these names come from. It shows, brothers and sisters, Egypt is ours. This ancient white man, historian, was not a racist. He wrote what he saw. He heard the names of these African rulers and people. He called one of them by the name Khufu. This is not French. It's not Russian. It's not Latin. Khufu, and also the name Khafre. There's a whole lot of names, brothers and sisters. I'll get to many of these names at a later time, but I'm giving you some of this. Of the 4th dynasty, these are some of the kings named Khufu. This is what Herodias wrote. Khufu, one of the kings named Khufu. And this is the 4th dynasty, shown in inscriptions to the 26th century, have processed libraries. They had libraries, learning libraries, and everything else. And this is what he wrote, talking about ancient Egypt. Very interesting. This is something I wanted to give you, that, brothers and sisters, because this is, you look at the name. Look at this name. Huh? See the name I wrote there? That's not European. That's not Tuba. It's not Tuba. This is from a Tuba historian talking about names of some of the ruling class, and he got the name pretty good. He got the name Khufu. He did a pretty good job of describing the name. See, so and also there's also another name that one of the kings went by. These names here, you look at this, it looks Nigerian. Okay, no doubt about this. No doubt about this. Okay, yeah. Okay, no. See, my computer is rejecting the names. Of course, you know that. They're gonna reject these names that I put in here. They're gonna try to change the names. Okay, Offrey. Now, I want you guys to look at this other name of another ruler. This is the names our ancestral brother. He's a Tubab, yes, but he was a historian. He was right on. He wrote the names as he heard them and he saw them. These names were changed, brothers and sisters, in later periods to take the African away from the Egyptians. But Herodias, and why do the historians today don't quote him? Because they consider Herodias, who was Greek, a traitor, because he gave the names of the Africans who were ruling. Khufu is one of the names. Here we have another ruler. He's given the names of the rulers, and this name here looks like almost like a Khan or Igbo. And if we have these brothers who speak the language Igbo and so forth, they can help us out on these names. But to me, the second name here looks more like something out of Nigeria, the present-day Nigeria, coming out of like out of Igbo or Yoruba or something like this. He wrote those names down, brothers and sisters. We have to give credit when credit is due. Herodias did his job, and he reported the names of the Africans who were running Egypt. They were not the names that we know that was written in the books in our history book that we learned in high school. And I don't know if Marcus is still here or not, and he can look at this at another. Here he is. Yes, he's talking about. Yeah, this is yes. Now see, this is our brother here is educator, and this is why I said, brothers and sisters, I'm unorthodox. You know that by me, those who follow me, I'm unorthodox. Okay, I am an old man now, and I'm going to talk. And when I have something here, I'm at the age now, I don't play around anymore. I'm 70 years old. I'm tired of playing around. I'm going to protect this continent. You understand? And I'm going to protect my people and my ancestors who reigned on this continent. And I'm going to give their history. I have black Tubab who are angry with me because I won't promote the Tubab. Okay? We got the Tubab, of course, in the governments who hate me, want to kill me, and so forth and so on, because I won't venerate the Tubab story. I am on this continent. I'm an African. I'm Fulani. I'm also Mende, Mendika, and Amazir, many others. And I'm going to protect our legacy. I'm giving you proof now that the ancient Egyptians were black, even by the eyes of another white man who was there. He wrote 332 BC, before Christ. And one of the kings, Khufu was his name. The other name is Khafre. What proof do you need? Egypt is ours. Egypt is ours, brothers. And we have a Tubab here. We have given credit. Herodias wrote, this is ours. These are our black ancestors. And languages of Akan, languages of Igbo, languages of Hausa. There's many different languages that was used in ancient Egypt. So I wanted to give you some of that. And I want to also tell you, give you some of the other names, because there's a lot. Okay, there's a lot, and I'm going to get into some of these names, brother. Okay, I gave you. Now, you know, I've had fights with our brothers in the Americas over Zechariah and stuff like that. Okay, I'm gonna give you something here so you can look at this. Okay, this is basically the names that we understand them to be, right? Okay, now this is the bastardization of our African names. Here is the real name written in the African language of who saw this name, who knew of these names because he saw the documents. Herodias. Herodias said that Zechariah is actually, the name is, and I'm gonna give it to you here so you have it, and I want you guys to start doing your research. This is the real name of Zechariah. 332 years BC of documents that they found that the ancient Egyptians, our ancestors, wrote, that found its way in the Bible. We changed the name Zechariah from the African name. I gave you the name that Herodias knows of the Africans when they wrote about the Old Testament. They did not use the word Zechariah. They called the word Is that Korea? Okay, even I have a hard time even pronouncing it. But this is the names, the African names that were written. See, I'm just giving you, and they said this, and we have our experts to say this is an Akan name. So we have Akan, we have Igbo, we have Hausa, we have Ga, we have all these African names that we had of people that there was documents written, and we have these names. Okay, I give you another one here, and I'll be closing here pretty soon. Joshua. Okay, Joshua was, we know this name because we have many African Americans in my generation had this name. It was changed to Joshua, but the name is actually this, as written by our esteemed historian, white historian. This is the real name, brothers and sisters, of Joshua. There was documents found that our ancient ancestors had compiled. Remember what Herodias said when he was there? He started to go to these suppositories. He talked about the ancient Egyptians and what he saw there, right? He talked about that. He said that they had kept beautiful records. They had libraries. He was hitting these libraries hard, okay? Very hard. He hit these libraries and he began to read these documents and he began to put down names, what he saw. How did these names find its way into the Bible? You think about that, brothers and sisters. How? He found the stories of this before the Bible was compiled. Yusuf, okay, in Arabic, we know him as Yusuf in Arabic language, but it's been changed in English to Joseph. It's not Joseph. See? Osofa, Osofu. This is the name that was found in the documents. Egypt is ours, brothers and sisters. Egypt is ours. Egypt was the historians who wrote in African dialects and named these kings and rulers and common folk were in variety of names. Akan, Ga, Hausa, Igbo. We know later periods, Mende. That's why I say to you, I pose the question to each one of us here today. Who are the West Africans? You think about that, brothers and sisters. Please get back to me with your research. Who are the West Africans? Because you have to know who the West Africans are because it's related to Egypt. And I'll let you make that determination yourself. Who are the West Africans? How did these languages and names get in Egypt that Herodias wrote about? See, so these Igbos are in Nigeria. Yes, we know. Yes, the Igbos in Nigeria. I said that. Yes, this is again part of this here. Drive from full. Okay, Western. Okay, yes. Okay, green. Okay, yes. But the names we know the name like King Tut. King Tut. We know him in the language Tutu. Okay. Okay, Ankuma. This is the name, the African name that we know him as. This is the names that they were translated. They got because when the Greeks came, when Herodes came, he listened to his interpreters who were black Egyptians. He said, "This is the names of so and so, so and so." He gave the names. Herodias wrote in the best way he could. But those who came after Herodias changed these names. That's the thing. That's why Herodias is dismissed, because the racist historians don't want to talk about Herodias because they said he betrayed them, because the Tubab historians are in the business of denouncing us. Herodias said, "No, I'm going to tell the truth. I'm an historian, a scholar." So when he talked to our African scholars at the time, he gave the names. He told, "I'm, Osufo, I'm Kufu, I'm Ofri. See, he wrote these names down. Brothers and sisters, Egypt is ours. Egypt is ours. Egypt is ours. Even from the eyes of another Tubab historian that we have to respect, Herodias, because at least he tried his best to preserve the African names of those who were in the king's list and the common people. And the documents that he found in these suppositories, he wrote about, again, about the historians, about the libraries and all the learning. They kept records, he said here. They had suppositories. I mean, he wrote everything down here. He talked about how they described the dynasties. He gave the names of the people, Khufu, Khafre. He gave all these names of the Africans that of the kings and common folk and so forth and so on. He described the people. He called them black with kinky hair. Some are short statured, muscular build. He described the Africans. He described them. Egypt is ours, brothers. Egypt is ours. I'm giving you more proof today. I'm giving you more proof today. These are named. King Tut is actually Tutu and Kumba. That's the name. We should start using the African names that even Herodias wrote down. We got here our brother Messiah word for word in Torah. Messiah, yes, okay. I don't Messiah. Okay, but yes, in the Torah. Okay, but you're kind of getting us away out from Egypt, my dear brother. I'm giving you the names of what Herodias wrote about the Africans that the documents that he began to review the documents, and he had to have these documents translated. So he wrote down the names of the Africans. This is what we're talking about. I'm not going to be drawn away from Africa. The Torah is a whole different another game, because the Torah, these documents preceded the Torah 332 BC. So well before the Torah was even created, because of Moses, documents were already kept. This is what we talk about. See, so and we have names of these Africans and stuff like that who was running it. I'm gonna keep number 307. We have another 308. 308 here. We have something. Yeah, I wanted to give you another name here as well. Okay, Canon. Yeah, okay. I'll give you this name. Then after we get ready to close, brothers and sisters. I wanted to get into Yahweh because that is interesting, and they got derivative from the Akan language. But I'll get more into that another day, because I just wanted to give you some tidbits. Okay, now I'm going to give you one, and then it'll be the last of the names. Because why we used to name our children's Isaiah, right? You know this name. How many in my generation? How many are your grandfathers have this name? Okay, my generation. Again, it's been changed, brothers and sisters. Okay, these names been changed. When Herodias found, because you got to remember something, the names I'm talking to you about, these are stories of wise men. How these names became Amos, Isaiah, they became Job. All these stories are already in suppositories of Egypt, 332 BC, 3,000 years before the Bible was even compiled. This is what we talk about, brothers and sisters. This is what we're talking about. Now, the name that Isaiah is actually, this is the name of Isaiah that was written in the ancient Egyptian language, and we're here, they called it, and again, he said, we know the scientists now tell us that this name came from the Akan people who were there. Asa is the name of Isaiah. Africa should be listening. Africa should be taking notes. Egypt is ours. And when the white Egyptians who are racist, who I saw program, I could not believe what I was listening to, these Egyptians who were slandering us as though they're not African. And they want to call themselves white. And they talk against us as black people. Some of them are so, one girl was so angry, she was so upset, crying in YouTube, denouncing anything that was black. This is what we've come to now. That's why I said, brothers and sisters, things like this, you don't approach with emotion. You approach with proof. See? And when Herodias began to read the documents that found its way in the Bible, like the book of Isaiah, was well before the Torah came about. The name was in the Akan language, Asa. King Tut, as we understand him today, Tutu and Konwa. This is his name that was known by Herodias. See, again, brothers and sisters, have you seen a pattern in my talks the last 3 weeks or so? I'll give you something unorthodox. I don't follow the BS script that everybody's following when he start talking about, because I ain't playing no games when he's talking about the continent and talking about our people. I don't play no games. I'm an old man now. I'm not a child. So this little childish games is over. I'm giving you stuff now to tell you, my younger brothers and sisters and the other generations, the younger generations today. Hey, you got to get with it. You got to study to defeat this racist mentality that's been destroying our history. And we have to credit, we have Dr. Greenberg, who they threatened to kill him. The Jewish lobby threatened to kill him because he exposed the Jewish lobby and the Jewish people as telling, he said, look, stop calling us Jews and Hebrews. We are not that. We're Europeans. Even Greenberg said, he said the real Jews and Hebrews were in Africa, and they wanted to kill him for it. Herodias wrote the stories about the suppositories in the history, the keeping of records of all of the stories, okay, that the ancient Egyptians had. The ancient Egyptians had stories. They had the stories about the interstellar space. We talked about that before too, right? We have names that's in African dialects. See? And again, I want you, okay, I'll put this down here. Gary Greenberg, please, brothers and sisters, okay, get this brother's book here in his the Moses mystery, the Moses mystery, and you guys start to read this. This is just one book. I'm just giving you the African origin, origin of the Jewish peoples. Okay, brothers and sisters, I'm giving you evidence for you, okay? Because you who are sitting, you are 20 years old now, 30 years old. I was in your shoes many decades ago. And when I started to gain the knowledge on Africa and the African continent, I had people came before me. And I listened to my African professors when I was in the United States at the time studying. See, so now I'm an elder. Those who preceded me, they're dead now. Now you're 20, 30, some of you are maybe early 40s. You get this evidence, brothers and sisters, learn it and pass it to the children and have our children pass this information on so we keep it, so we can destroy this narrative has destroyed our history. See, and I'm gonna put some here. They are Greeks. Wait a minute. Let's go back up here and see the Egyptian stone Hebrews are okay. Shall we enter? Go rock with the history. It's all good, brother. Yes. Uh, I want to cover again about the word Yahweh because even that is in a variation of the African dialect that they found these names in. There's other books too. The Deception and Myths of the Bible by Lloyd Graham. There's a lot of scholarship out there, brothers and sisters. It's just that a lot of it is pushed under because they don't want you to read it. We had historians, Jew and whites, who wrote the real history. And there's many books, many, to give you a well-rounded what happened. Who are the real Jews in Hebrews? See? And so this is, should it matter? No, but it has matter because our history has been changed. And this is why we talk about this. According to the Egyptian records, they came into Africa from outside of. Wait a minute. What? Wait a minute. Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute, brother. Wait a minute now. Wait a minute, brother. Mr. Afro-Asiatic, you said according to Egyptian records, they came into Africa from outside according to the stone wall. That's not true. My dear brother, Afro-Asiatic, I hope you're here. This is what I'm talking about. Where'd you get this from? Because if you read the Book of the Dead in the hieroglyphics, it tells that the people came from the mouth of the Nile. Where is the Nile? Where is the Nile? The Nile's not in Europe. It didn't come from outside Africa. It came from where we know today is Uganda, Tanzania region. That's the mouth of the Nile. That's the Arabic Nile. We call Nile, okay? And even the Nile is a bastardization of that name. I have the African name that was used in the documents. But this is what I'm talking about. According to the Egyptian records, that's not true. They came from Africa. I just gave you proof. I'm hoping you still hear, my dear brother. Okay. Now you explain your. I got it here. This according to the Egyptian records, they came into Africa from outside. What are you talking about? Before I explode, where is the proof that you're talking about here? They came. Where did they come from? My dear brother, Afro-Asiatic. Where did he come from? I'm okay. He said he's here. He's here now. Please give me your proofs that you're talking about, because what you wrote here is something, and they came from outside. What Egyptian records you talking about? So you give us your okay. Moses Mystery. This is the name of the book. It's one of the books. I'm here. I want you to give me your proofs, my dear brother, Afro-Asiatic. Give me the proofs. How can the black people come from Europe and possess Akan names like Osufo and Khufu and names of Kufri and names like this, Asa? All of these are African names. They're not European. So how did Africans, if they were in Europe, again, how did they travel and come into Egypt? If the hieroglyphics tells us that the people traveled the Nile, they said they came from the mouth of the Nile and they travel upwards, meaning because the Nile is going against gravity. So I want our dear brother here, Mr. Afro-Asiatic, to provide his evidence to show that he said that in Egyptian records, where did this come from? Because I just proved that wrong. See, and we talk about here, Herodotus talked about he was there in 332 BC. He was in Egypt. He talked about all the records and the people. He described them as black with woolly, very kinky hair, nose, thick lips. He described many of the African people as being short-stacked and some short, some taller, and so forth and so on. He described them, and he called them Ethiop, meaning burnt by the sun. Now, I never said from Europe. not one time. But you said they came from outside. Let's look at what you said, our dear brother. Where is it at here? Okay. I said Hebrews. No, brother. You wrote. Where is it at now? Where is it at? Okay, here it is. Here, you said to us here, according to Egyptian records, they came from. It came into Africa. That means they had to travel from somewhere, from the outside, according to the stone wall. No. Where did you get this evidence, my dear brother? Where did you get this evidence from? Because I just gave you the proof by the Europeans themselves, talking about the Africans and the names that they used. Khufu, this is African. These are African dialects. Akan, Igbo, and Hausa, and Ga. This is the languages this some of the languages he gave, and the mystery in the book, Gary Greenberg's book. I just gave you the title. You guys pick that book up and read it. He destroys this myth that our brother here was talking about, that they came from some other place, from Japan, or they came from France, or some other place, or from Jazira Arab. They did not come from Jazira Arab. They came from the mouth of the Nile. The Nile runs upwards, right? The cataracts begin from the south. The Nile runs from Uganda, the Kenya, Tanzania, okay, in this region there. This is where the Nile originated from. Herodotus described them as being black. And they told their story about coming on canoes going up, and they came into Egypt before the pre-dynasty era. So where'd you get your information from? I'm not going to spend a lot of time to argue with our dear brother here, but this is what I'm talking about. Okay, I am very well. Okay, I'm asking you, where'd you get your information from? Our brother, okay, yes, okay, yeah, and here we go. You said you're well studied, but where'd you get this information that the ancient Egyptians came outside of Africa? Where did it come from? Did it come from the hieroglyphics? You said it did. It didn't come from hieroglyphics. It can't. See? Yeah, everybody's wanting to know. See, this is what we're talking about. You said you're well studied. I just gave you proof from a white historian that the ancient Egyptians were black. They were not white. And here you come on this show here, and you said you look, and you trying to play games with us by telling us that you wrote here. Where is it at? Let me find it again here. That you wrote, yeah, here it is. I want everybody to say it again. According to Egyptian records, you said they came into Africa. That means they came from Europe. They came from somewhere outside of Africa into Europe, into Egypt. In the hieroglyphics, Egypt is described as Kemt, meaning the black lands, talking about the people. Again, okay, our Gary Greenberg talks about his study, and also he took the documents from Herodotus, he translated. He talked about the African origins of the Jewish people. He covered that. See, so, and we have people here who are studying about that, especially people like Marcus, who is a professional teacher. He also studies about this. This is what we're talking about. So when you come on the show here and you say that ancient Egyptians came from outside of Africa, we want to know where you get that from, because you didn't get it from the hieroglyphics. You didn't get it from the Book of the Dead. It's impossible, because that's what they said. See, so and you said you're well studied. Okay, here we go. I said they were not black. They were okay. No, yeah. But wait a minute, brother. See, you come on my show here, and I'm harping about this. I'm sensitive because I see the other shows. We have people come on the shows and try to destroy the African narrative. You said they came out from Africa. They were not from Africa. They came from some region. And we have the proof here that that's not. We have the linguistic proof of the languages. We have the scientific, meaning the hair strands, the color by the melanin. They tested that. We have eyewitness accounts. Okay, we have all of that. We have the languages, Ga, Akan, Igbo, all those languages that was used in ancient Egypt is African. They were never European languages. See, so, you know, I don't know where, okay, now you said, I never said ancient Egypt, brother. what I'm talking about. I said about the Hebrews. The Hebrews, you can't distinguish because the Hebrews are black too. The Hebrews came out, they were in this region because we have proof that even in this book, they talk about the Hebrews because even them, the names, I gave the name Hebrew, Isaiah. He was Hebrew, right? But his name was what? Asa. This is actually the name that was his name that I just put there here to show you. Okay, this name here, Asa. This is the name of Isa. I mean of Isaiah. These are the documents that were written in the Book of the Dead and other documents that the Egyptians kept. 332 BC before Jesus. We had the stories of Joseph, if you know him. We got it here in Greenberg's book. We got the story of Job. All of these is before the Bible was even created. So how did these stories that was written by our brothers, okay, end up in the Bible? The book of Job, okay? Now, Yahweh, we have a name, an African name that was named that was in the writings, okay? That we have the name for Job. Then we have the Lamentations. We have all of these books. Now, the Lamentations, the Lamentations the Christians use, okay, this word Lamentations was actually that was described by Herodias. I'm gonna give you the words that he learned and from the documents that okay, this is one. These are the names again that was found in the documents and has been changed to European type names. The Book of Lamentations has been changed. This is the real African word for Lamentations that was found in the Egyptian documents of the dead. I'm giving you the proof now. This is the names that they found in the hieroglyphics. And these are the names, and this name here in particular here is a name coming out from from Akan language. The Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, some of them who were Akan, and we have some of them were pharaohs themselves. We have Fulani, we have many different pharaohs, okay, from various backgrounds. And the documents that they found in the suppositories that Greenberg interpreted from Herodias. The Book of Lamentations was changed to Queko Kepri Seba. This is the name of Lamentations that was found in the 332 BC. Brothers and sisters, I'm not mad at our brother. I just want to get him to understand that our ancient brothers did not come from Europe. Europe, as we know it, Egypt was never in Europe. You heard me say Egypt is ours. The ancient Egyptians, yes, the ancient Egyptians who were white, who came to colonize, yes, but they're not the original people. They did not speak the Akan languages. When the Europeans came to Egypt, they found these documents already. The Book of Job, they found they found the Book of Lamentations. All of these things were written in documents already. That's why Greenberg calls it the Africans who wrote the Bible, because when the Jews finally began to break away, they took the African documents and they studied in the mystery schools. In the mystery schools, you studied about Job. I'm just using the English names, and Yusuf, and you studied about Isaiah. But the documents were written. The name Osufo was the name for Joseph. Isaiah, Asa. These are the African names that were written by African people by the books that we're talking about today. They did not come from somewhere else, our dear brother. They didn't come out from Europe or from Asia or any other place. They came out of Africa. Yes, okay. We have all of these traditions. We have all of these traditions. And this is why, again, our brother here, when he made his comment, we got to we're talking about, and okay, here's one of the comments. I never said anything, brother, you are talking about. I said about the Hebrews. The Hebrews did not come out from Europe either. Okay, we're proving this because the Hebrews that we understand by the names of Yusuf, Joseph, all these names are written in documents 332 years BC. So that means they were well before BC, before Christ. So it was well before the Bible we understood it was written. We have the names because why? Herodias was there. He went and visited these records. It's Herodias who wrote down the names of the Africans, the books that we know today as the book of Isaiah, the book of Job, the book of Joseph, and all these. They found these names well before the Bible was created. And they did not use these English names. They used the African names. Osufo means Joseph. See, this is what I'm talking about. I proved that today, and I'm hoping our brother here goes back to read. I'm long today here, and I got to get ready to go make my prayer. But I wanted to touch on some of this, brothers and sisters, because even this Jewish scientist said something here, and I'm gonna read off this thing, and I will get ready to close here. Here's what he said about these falsehoods. Our brother said they came out of Egypt. This is what Greenberg said about this. He said about what has happened to us, how they used this against us. He said the greatest false belief in Christianity, therefore, has been used the assumption that the Jewish people wrote the documents of the Bible. They didn't. They found the documents and took them and learned the documents in mystery schools and translated these documents into Latin, into Greek, and then finally into the Hebrew language, okay, and the Aramaic and so forth and so on. Therefore, the names of the people and places in these documents and their assigned authors were all Jewish names because they were African. One of the most important evidence that debunks the Jewish people's 2,000-year claim that they wrote the Bible is the transpose, Akan, and other African tribal names of the authors of the Old Testament documents. There's a name, and I'll give this to you, inshallah ta'ala. They had their stories well before the Bible was created. This is how they found Joseph and all that. All these names were transposed. He's giving you evidence. And I gave you Asa was actually Isaiah. Osopho means Joseph. Okay, all of this, brothers and sisters, the evidence is overwhelming. That's why I said to you, when I give my programs, I'm unorthodox. I give you stuff that nobody wants to talk about, and I give you proofs to it. Now, if you want to reject it, I'm not fighting anybody. You reject it. You go to cling to that, but don't come on my show and tell me that the ancient Egyptians came outside into Africa from some other place. I ain't having that, especially when we have the evidence here. And you haven't even seen my other programs. Mr. Afro-Asiatic, please review my other evidence. I gave DNA evidence here about, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Review that. The E1B series is not germane to Europe. The LOI is not germane to Europe. It's germane to Africa. These are some of the genotypes that the ancient Egyptians possessed. That's right. Again, evidence to show that the ancient Egyptians were black. Because my mother has the LO1 series. And a LO1 series is not from Europe. It's from Africa. And Cam does mean black. People are saying that I don't know what you're talking about now, Cam. I don't know what this what you're talking about now, my dear brother. Was himself black man and beloved part. Yes, we know him to be a black man, and even, I gave evidence about our prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. I gave of a black man, a historian who was 100 years removed from the Prophet ﷺ. He talked about his family. He described him as being a brown black man, and the translations of that meaning if he was in Los Angeles, California, no one would be calling him Caucasian. They'd be calling him African American. See, so we know these evidences and so forth and so on. And here we go. Here it has trolling you. Yes, that doesn't mean you're okay. And the other stuff. You want to post a link and go into sources. Now I don't know what are you talking about. I gave you one of the books of the best proof here of the Greenbergs. I put that into the chat here. You can go into that. Who said that your languages wasn't me, brother? You have to either you retract your comment that you here our brother talks about him here too. That's not true. The Egyptians said the origins to the south near the base. Yes, thank you, my dear brother. Again, I don't know where this Asiatic, Afro-Asiatic, where are you getting? We've been asking you. Everybody's asking you about, brother. Please give us your evidence to support your thesis here that the Egyptians came from some other area. Because it's not there, and we're giving you a chance. Okay, we're giving you a chance to explain this, because you put up a comment here and everybody's taking you to task for it, and rightfully so. You're going to have to come up with your evidence. You said you never said they came. Okay, where did they come from? You said in your writings that they came from another area. That's what you said. You said they came outside. They came into Africa, you said. So that means they had to come from outside Africa. You said it. You wrote it, and you sent it to us here. So we're all taking you to task for it. And you said here, I never said, brother, what are you talking about? I said Hebrews. We got, and you said you want to post a link with going to the sources. Okay, I gave you, I don't know where I put the name of the book here. I'm trying to find it so I can highlight here for those to see, because there's a lot of comments here. African origins of the Hebrew. Okay, Africans. Oh, wait a minute. Okay, okay, yeah, okay, yeah, okay. Now I get you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Brother. This, what you said here, doesn't measure up to Greenberg's book, because Greenberg got the evidence directly from the source of the European historian who was there at 32 BC by the name of Herodias. Herodias gave us the African names of many of the king's list of pharaohs, and he gave us the African names of them. He described them as well. There's a lot of books out there, and some of it is so atrocious, we don't use them. I know. I went to school inside the United States, and I had to keep my mouth shut in order to get a grade to go out. I heard what the professors told us, and I heard what I was in high school, what they said. I had to keep my mouth shut. We were jumping out of trees. We had no history until the Tubal came and all this type of stuff. I had to keep my mouth shut until I got to college. Then it was different. But I gave you Greenberg's book. I wrote it down here. I don't know where it's at, because there's a lot of stuff here, because, you know, the enemy is going to remove this stuff out, because we got people here that you know, I see here they removed it. I didn't remove that. See, this is what I'm talking about. I gave you the proof. Somebody came in and took my evidence out. I mean, see, so we have people who was backing up Mr. Afro-Asiatic and trying to help him, because I gave the proof of the book. And anyway, I'll put it in here again. The Greenberg's book, and I'll just give it to you again. Gary Greenberg, and it's the Moses Mystery, the African origin of the Jewish people. This is the name of the book. Again, The African Origin of the Jewish People. This is by Gary Greenberg. They threatened to kill him because he exposed the truth of who the Hebrews and the Jews were. See, and he took the documents from a man who was in Egypt in 32 BC. He gave the names of some of the pharaohs. Khufu was one. Khafre was another. Okay, and another name they used for the Akan, which I gave, and I think they even erased that out of the chat now too. The fourth dynasty. He gave all of these names. He gave the written records because he was there at the time of the king's list, going back to the 4th millennium BC. He had all this, Herodias, and he wrote this. See, and there's more evidence that I will explain in days from now, sometime this week or next week, or maybe a couple of days from now. I'm not sure, according to Subhanahu wa ta'ala. We'll go from there. And PhD source. Okay, yes, I know of this person here because this person also wrote about the black people that they saw in the 5th, 6th century. I know about her works because she talked about the Murabi Tun and what happened in Andalus. I know, I've read her books, and it's her that quoted, or him that quoted Charlemagne talking about the black people who came to fight him in France. I know of her works. Yes, she's credible in that regard. But this book here, I don't know what she said. But if you're getting it from her and she said that the ancient Egyptians came from the outside, then our dear doctor is wrong, because he cannot refute the people who were there in 3200 BC. See? And he's telling you that these people were black people when he saw them in 3200 BC. Okay? And instruct. Okay, okay, yeah, okay, brother. You need to study. Okay, Henry, Afro-Asiatic, my dear brother. I want you to, to get the book African Origins and read it. I read it some years back, and this man destroys most of the commentary from most European historians. He did. He destroyed it. He destroyed them because he gave the proof. And why is it that the historians refuse to look at Herodias's books that he wrote about ancient Egypt? Why? Why did they credit him and call him a traitor? Because he depicted the people as he saw them. And most books will do the same thing by telling that the ancient Egyptians came from Europe, came out from some other place. They were not black. This has been refuted here tonight. I've given you the proof. I've even given you the African names that on the king's list that Herodias wrote about, because he took the African names. I gave the proof. See, so again, we go through this, and so challenge to be extremely defensive, unnecessary. No, brother. No. I gave you proof. I didn't just yell and scream at you and start to curse at you or to get upset. No, I gave you the evidence that you refuse. You refuse. See, and so we all of us sitting here now waiting. Where are you coming from, our dear brother? Because I'm not defensive. I don't need to yell and scream at you. I gave you the evidence. I have it here. We have Dr. Greenberg's book. He took it from Herodias, who was there in 32 ABC again. He gave the names of the pharaohs who were there. Khufu was one of them. Khufri was another. These are Africans who were ruling in the 4th dynasty. They did not come out from Europe. They did not come from other areas. They came from the mouth of the Nile. And the mouth of the Nile is to the south. This is what they said. This is what our ancient ancestors said. They came from the south. They didn't come from Europe. And this is why we're disputing with you today. And I gave you the name of the book, and you guys read it, and you guys go from there, and so forth and so on. I'm going to give you one more thing, brothers and sisters, and I will close. Now, Herodias talked about, okay, now later on he talked about the documents that he had. He talked about also about the names of King Tut. Everybody makes fun of this name, King Tut. Okay, he's got the documents written that was, all these documents was preserved. King Tut, as we know him today, was changed by the Greeks, the racist Greeks, as they became to change the history. He wrote in there talking about King Tut. The name that was written in hieroglyphics, and the translation of the name was Tutu and Koma. That's the name of King Tut, his real African name, in the Book of the Dead. Okay, the books that were written in the Egyptian history. King Tut in the King's list is not King Tut. He's called Tutu and Koma. I wrote that earlier. We have the proof here. So my brothers and sisters today, I gave my traditional unorthodox talk as usual, but I gave evidences. We have one person refuse that. We have to respect our brother. None of us can use any bad language. And if I yelled and screamed, please forgive me. That was not my intention. But I'm very sensitive because our people are being misled all the time. I gave evidence about our ancient brothers coming from the South, and our brother gave evidence that says they came from some other place. And this is why we have to be very careful when we talk. And we have now scholarship written by Africans and Europeans who bring forth the real evidence to support us, to tell us that our people were Black from the beginning. And they came out from Africa. And it shows here that they changed the names. And here's another book, brothers and sisters, that I want to give you, then I will close here. We have another book called The Natural Genesis. Okay, you guys can go over this tape again because I'm tired of my hands. I've been writing all day long. I'm old too. I'm not 20 years old anymore. The book is called Natural Genesis, a book of the beginnings. Gerald Massey, he wrote this in 1883. And he said this about how the Europeans perpetrated a fraud on the Black people in particular. He's European. He says in his book, one of his premises, written in 1883, he said he calls, again, the book's called The Natural Genesis, a book of the beginnings. Gerald Massey in 1883. Gerald Massey is his name. The book again, The Natural Genesis, a book of the beginnings. He says he called the story and practice of Christianity the legendary lion lore. Because the Europeans changed the books that Herodias saw in the suppositories in 3200 BC and wrote the names of the Black Africans who were ruling Egypt. They changed the names. And Gerald Massey is calling the Europeans out again by saying that you are a liar. That the name, that Christianity and the people, they were Black. The first Christians we know live today were Black people. And they came out from Egypt. And again, his book, The Natural Genesis, a book of the beginnings. Gerald Massey is his name. And it was written in 1883. And he talks about the falsehoods and the false assumptions, and the foundation of Christianity was based on falsehoods and lies. We know that now because one of their own, Herodias, saw the documents of Isaiah, Job, and he had the African names of all of these books before they came into the Bible. Gerald Massey read these books as well, these translations, the glyphics, hieroglyphics, and he said among the falsehoods and the assumptions in the foundation of Christianity has been the belief that the Jewish people that followed the Bible into Europe actually wrote the documents of the Bible. We know they didn't now. The Jews found these documents written by Black Africans. This is what we know, because those books that you call the book of Isaiah, it was called the book of Asa. Asa is the name of Isaiah. Egypt is ours, brothers. And let nobody can come in here and come with evidence to tell me that Egypt is not ours. Yes, our dear brother, he's a professional educator. Yes, with the genetics tell us if they came original from Central and Southern Egypt, to Southern Africa, the LOI series, the E1B series, and all these series is like this, and there's other variations of that. They didn't come out from Europe. We have the evidence. Sharing the extensive African and European president of the European signatures in the West here. Yes, the Eurasian, yes, we know the populations, brother, because look, when even the Arabs, they were saying, we have documentation showing by the 5th and 6th century, we had terms used for the Tubab that was coming. We have people that they were light-skinned, no doubt. They now, because of thousands of years they have left Africa, they're no longer Black Africans as we know them. They start to come back to Jazeera Arab. We know this, true. And they mix with the population and they begin to call them Arabs. Arabs. That's right. And they were a mixture of Black people and lighter skinned people. We know today, we call them Caucasians, you want to call them whatever. And they mixed and we had them and we called them Arabs. Yes, we know that. And we know that we have mixed because those genotypes left to go there. How is it that I have a cousin who's Mexican in Los Angeles? His mother she's a Mexican, but she has LO1 series because she's related to my mom. The LO series made its way into Europe. The E1B series made its way into Europe and Jazeera Arab and into Asia. We know that. But it did not originate from Asia and Europe first. The Europeans were the last to be, quote unquote, created. We know that. They weren't the first. See, we know that. Yes, okay, you studied genetics, okay, but we're waiting for your evidence. You gave us one book, but we asking you again, our brother. And we can't argue with you all night because everybody's got to go, and I don't want to belabor the point. How do you explain the LO1 series if you study genetics? I have too for many years. I don't know how old you are, but I studied the African history way back. I'm talking in the 1970s. That's well before many of you guys here were born. In the early 1970s, I began to study the African saga. And before we started to have all this DNA that we know, I started to study genetics. So yes, but I want to explain how did the ancient Egyptians come up with one E1B and LOI series? How? And now we know this to be the case. See? So, jealousy is a sad disease. And yes, we know this. And again, bro, we have this evidence. And I got to get ready to close here because I got to pray here, and we got a brother here. How you doing, my dear brother? Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you there and Facebook. I appreciate you, brother. You always give me support, and I really appreciate you for that. Anjarama, my dear brother, thank you very much, and everything. Yes, there's now Bakra. We have names, European names. I mean, we have names that was written in different dialects. We call it West Africa. I have two grandmothers, of course. My mom's side is the Fulani side. Okay, we know that. And we had my other grandmother, which she's my complexion darker, and my uncles, stuff like that. When I asked names about this, I used to ask myself, Granny, tell me. And my mom's side, she said, yeah, we call them Bakra. That's what she said. That's the name was passed down to her. Now, she was born in 1896. And I asked what this actually means. She said, it means white people. But she said that when the slave masters, the slave catchers would come in through the forest, the Africans would run because they would smell the air and they know the Bakra, Bakra, Bakra. They would yell out. Bakra is like a chicken because they said that the white man didn't smell like Africans. He smelled like a wet chicken. Okay, this has been turned about a lot of times. She said Buckra. On my mom's side, they used the word Tuba because that came from the Fofodi dialects, right? And also Mende and Mendinka used the term Tuba. We know that. Buckra is more of a derogatory name because this is what they call the slave catchers. And none of us should venerate a bastard who comes to took our African people and killed many of them. My grandmother on my dad's side told me this name, Buckra. She said, this is what we called them. Talking about the slave catchers. This is not every common European, no. But the slave catchers had this name. But again, it was changed to be all white folk. So in certain languages of West Africa, we know Buckra is used to describe white folk, especially those slave masters and slave catchers and those on ships. Buckra. Buckra's coming. Here he comes. I smell the air. I smell Buckra. Buckra. You hear them say this, meaning there's a white man who smells like a chicken. He's coming to get you. This is some of the things in history, and you know, and you got to understand something. You know, we have a saying here in Africa, you know, that we don't glorify the person who is harming another person, another human being. We don't glorify them. And we're not going to glorify the slave catcher here, not on my show, and I won't. I talk against him. See, and you know, and whatnot. So we're not going to glorify him here. And I got a couple more here, and then the elements not. Yes, brother. Wait a minute. Everybody heard what I said. I said the E1 series is more or less on the what? We have both. We have some of our sisters have LO. LO is my mom. Now, I don't know what you call him on my mom's side. I don't know what you call that. We know the LO. I didn't say that. I know E1 series, we have that. And a lot of the men have the E1 series. We know African men and some African Americans too have, because they got that again from the male side, and also paternal. We I mean, you know, this because we mixed. I know that most of the people who have LO1 are women, because that's a more of the, and you'll find this in Egypt. See, so you can go back to Google and start looking again, but we need to learn to have conversations with. No. Okay, you know, brother, I'm going to have to run you now. Okay, I gave you a lot of rope, and I gave you evidence. And now when I give evidence, this is what I'm talking about. I give evidence. Now you're saying that we're using ego, as though no one gave you evidence. I've given you evidence, and you refuse to listen to that evidence. I've given you the books. You refuse those books. You keep clinging on to what some European, who's most likely, I know of this Dr. Dana. She wrote about what Charlemagne said. I read her book about what Charlemagne said about the black Africans, and it was racist. Okay, he called us molten black. He said only thing was white on us was our teeth. I know the poem of what Charlemagne. She and Dr. Dana, if she's a woman or man, I don't know which one. I read that book and the poems of Charlemagne talking about the black African people. He called us Niger, which came to be the N word, called S1. He called us also blackamoors. Okay, I know her book about that. I gave you the evidence. That's not ego. You refuse to listen to that. You keep going on about everybody's coming after you for no reason, and nobody's bringing evidence. So I think my dear brother, we've had enough of your antics today, and we're going to delete your comment, and we're going to start to throw you out, because this is we've had enough. We had enough of your antics and so forth today and everything. My brothers and sisters, see, and we have people who's protecting him, because now, like I said, they start to take out. Okay, now he's gone. Afro-Asiat is gone. Brothers and sisters, I had my proofs today. This is the second week in a row we had people come on air here, and they have to be spies, and they have to be I can't believe these be our African brothers. I believe them to be Tubab. They come on the show, talk crazy and stuff like this. And I gave this man, I kept asking him, give us the proof that shows that the African people came out from some other place. He can't do it. And he says now he quotes a book. If this Dr. Dana says that, it's a lie. Because how can she refute a man who was in Egypt at the time, 33200 BC, he was there in Egypt. I go by his word more than some Frenchman, okay, who wrote a book way back, okay, a couple of hundred years ago. This man was there in Egypt. Dr. Dana was not. See, so I had to run our brother, and and I was rightfully so. I gave him all the time. I gave him all the evidence and everything like this. And also my brother here, yes, please subscribe to my station, because again, I'm going to give you stuff. We don't play games here. Okay, we're not going to play no games here. And if I'm wrong, you guys give me some, I'm a human being. I don't know everything. Like I say, I like Marcus, I learned things from him. Marcus learns from me. We all learn from one another. That's how we learn. We don't close our eyes and ears and heart to another black man. We just don't. We learn from one another, okay? But we must take the task when people write documents and tell us, again, after we brought the proof that the ancient Egyptians were black, we got the names of some of the rulers in the fourth millennium who was there in the fourth dynasty by the name of Khufu, which is not European. I gave proof. We gave the name of the book. We told who wrote this was Herodias, and he comes back and said the Egyptians came out from somewhere else. I think this brother here is not one of our brothers. I think he's something else other than he's not our brother. So I had to run him, and that's just the way, and I think before, I'm going to look at I think I removed him before, and he seemed to come back. So that tells me the enemy is assisting him, because I ran him before in another show when he talked crazy about I can't remember what it was now. I remember him, and I got to look in here. I had him on my list to throw him out. I see someone put him back. We know who put him back, don't we? So, dear brothers and sisters, yes, Musa Sukkot, who are you referring to? Okay, I'm not sure who you're talking about there, my dear brother. And the leader, there were the slave catchers in camp. Slavers have been every era. We're going to have slave catchers, man. I mean, that's something human nature. We see a profit can be turned by enslaving other human beings. It's in every society. Nobody's been exempt, even whites. There was a white slave trade in Europe. They sold slaves to black Africans. I don't know if you know that, but they did. That's right. And matter of fact, here on my group, I know the slave dungeon that's in the city here, which is about 30 miles from here, where the Europeans were sold to the sultanates here in Morocco. Whites, blacks, white men and white women. So we know there was a slave trade. Even the Europeans enslaved their own and sold them here in Africa. We know that. Slavers has always been. Let's name them. I don't know what name of the Kemetic records. The records that we have here, we have the King's List, which I was telling you about before. The King's List is one, but also we have the Book of the Dead, because the Book of the Dead gives you a beautiful history of the the history and whatnot. And where was that 306 where we talk about Herodias and the book, and I our dear sister Leslie, I gave you the name of one book that you should get, and that's Dr. Greenberg's book here. If you're still here, our dear sister, the Moses Mystery by Gary Greenberg. You must get this. This will help you to guide you, because he quotes from Herodias a lot, and it's the African origin of the Jewish people. You should get this book, because he refutes a lot of the stuff that was talked about the Jews and so forth and so on. He refuted a lot of this information, and he also corrects the information of what was written well before to show that the African people were the ancient Egyptians. And And we got here again, I got to get out of here because I'm going to get in trouble here to go make my prayer. The ancient historian Herodias, again, was talking about when he visited the country, he was highlighting, he said the Egyptians lived in a cultivated part, and it was just a beautiful country. Their practice of keeping records. I'm quoting Herodias. He says the practice of keeping records of the past, meaning, again, the king's list is what is used of all the kings of Egypt, okay? All the pharaohs, okay? All of them. He had the list, and he gave some of the, here in this little small, Khufu was one, Kafuri. So one pharaoh might have been for 20, 30 years and another one, but they all had African names, Akan language, God language that we know today. Those days, there was no such thing as God language. There was no such thing as Akan or Hausa language. They didn't have that. It was just Egyptian. That's what they knew. See, so he translated those names, and he gave us the names of these Africans and whatnot. And he says, he's talking about that this before Egypt became unified. He says that the deeds of the kings were already sculpted in the reliefs, meaning the king's list in the reliefs, meaning the hieroglyphics. One who he liked was Khufu. He liked him. Khufu was another name that he called this one pharaoh. Khafre is another. And the fourth dynasty, this was in the fourth dynasty in Egypt. And again, he talked about that. To the 26th century have possessed libraries. The Egyptians had libraries from every era, and they kept meticulous records of who the kings were and the pharaohs and whatnot. This is Herodotus, who was a Greek historian. He was a Tubal, but he wrote what he saw. He visited these suppositories and he wrote, and he gave the evidence. See, and he says here, Herodotus, he says the evidence confirms that the Jewish people and the ancient Egyptians, the most likely people to have written the biblical documents, were ancient Egyptians. And that explains why there are numerous ancient Egyptian writings in the Bible. This is what we're talking about. Greenberg uncovered about what Herodias said, brothers. Herodias has all of these documents, okay? The book of Isaiah, book of Job, all these books that we know. Isaiah is actually the Akan African word for Isaiah is Asa. This is the name that was on the hieroglyphics, Asa, not Isaiah. That's a corruption by the Europeans. He gave this evidence. This evidence was compiled into the Bible. So we had the Old Testament, Job, Isaiah, all of these found this way into the Old Testament because they were in the mystery school systems, right? So I'm giving you this evidence. This is why it's important, brothers and sisters. Please, for your edification, get these books by Gary Greenberg, the Moses Mystery, the African Origin of Jewish People. You got to have that. That gives you the explanation and everything. And then you want the African names, Akan, Ga, Igbo, Hausa, all of these languages we know today were used in ancient times, but they weren't called that. They were just Egyptian. Okay, they were just Egyptian dialects. They were not Akan. They became Akan when they moved out from Egypt into Ghana. They became Hausa when they moved into, we know, Nigeria. They became Ga when they moved to eastern Ghana. See, they became Igbo when they came to the southern part of what present day Egypt, present day Nigeria. In those days, they were not Akan. They were not the Ga people. They were not the Hausa people. They weren't the Mende people. They were Egyptians. That came later when they left. This is why I said my talks are unorthodox, because I'm not going to go follow that script out there. I've sit quietly for years. I won't say nothing. But now I said it's time for me, because I prayed on it, and I was telling our brother Marcus I was going to get into this in January of this year, but things happened, and things going on in the Sahel, which is my baby, and I start to write about that and do my studies and report about that. But now I got into the Egyptian part, and this is what I'm giving you. And again, it's unorthodox, meaning I've given you the proof to say Egypt is ours. It's ours, brothers and sisters. It's ours. And this, even the small clips I gave today, prove this. And I'll give you more proof the next time. So I better conclude with that and whatnot and everything. I wanted to give you guys something, one name, and I have to, because when you talk about Egypt and we talk about black folk, I got to give you, I got to give you something. I gave you Zechariah. I gave you the name of Zechariah that's in the Akan language. Again, Sakkari. I can't even pronounce the name because some of the Akan, they said it was part of the Akan language. It was in the Old Testament at that time, but they didn't know it as the Akan language. It was this ancient Egyptian. Okay, Joshua, the book of these are old books here, old books that they didn't use in the Bible. All this stuff they found in the suppositories, in the Egyptian suppositories. They found all of these old books of all of these people that found their way into the ancient, to the Old Testament. And the name Hosea. Okay, yes. Now, everybody knows of this, and I would have to close because I know I'm going to get in trouble here with my wife, for the prayer. Okay, here. Okay, everybody knows, Hosea. Okay, everybody knows the name, right? In the reliefs, the translation in the African dialect, the name is It reminds me of the full day words. This is the name here again that the book of Hosea, okay? The translation of that is Osei. Now we know in the Fafode, in the Messina and Pular Fafode dialect, we have a name Sese. We have that. It's very similar in this. Osei, okay, Osei is very similar to the Fafode dialect of Sese and Sise. Okay, Sise also, remember, it's very similar. And I ask you before I leave, brothers and sisters, those who are here and those who come, you guys think about this and you get back to me. Who are the West Africans? Who are the West Africans? My dear sister Leslie, you get into this also. Who? I'm asking you, our dear sisters, what do you think? Who are the West Africans? Our brother Marcus asked you the same question. Who are the West Africans? Our brother Musa Sukai, who are the West Africans? Our brother Henry, who? Who are the West Africans? So the next time, brothers and sisters, please, if you guys have the answers, please do your study. I gave you some evidence today. This has been long. And those who are still with me, thank you very much for coming to the show and spread this tape. Until the next time, brothers and sisters, I'll have something again, inshallah ta'ala, and we'll cover this again and we'll go more in depth. I'll give you more proof and I'll give you more of what Herodotus had to say about our continent, about this region. And again, brothers and sisters, Egypt is ours. Okay? Egypt is ours. It was from the beginning and still to this day, Egypt is ours. Okay? And Kempt, that's right. Kempt is ours, brothers. It's ours. Okay? So, and stay blessed. I will, my dear brothers. And again, Kempt, Egypt is ours. Salaam alaikum. Rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.